I was traveling alone, young, in a country where I had maybe 20 words of the language. I was at a big bus station, the kind that's half indoors and half open to the platforms, crowds moving through it the whole time. And being in a crowd felt safe. So many people, so much daylight coming through the glass, so many eyes. That's the part I leaned on. I thought a crowded place couldn't be a dangerous place. I had it exactly backwards. A man started talking to me while I waited. Friendly, an older man, a wide, easy smile. "Where are you from? What brings you here? You here on holiday?" The normal questions a stranger asks. I gave the short, polite answers you give, half looking at my phone, hoping the bus would come. And his questions kept going, and they kept getting more specific. In a way I didn't clock at first because they were all wrapped in that same warm smile. "Are you married? Do you have children? Is your family here with you in this country?" And I gave a little laugh and said something vague because it felt rude not to. But a cold thing was starting in my stomach. Because those aren't holiday questions. Married, kids, family here. How long it would be before anyone, anywhere, noticed I was gone. So I did the thing you do. I went, cool. Short answers, no eye contact, body turned away, the universal language of please stop. And he read it. He backed off, drifted a few feet, and I let myself relax because I thought that was the whole encounter. An overly friendly man at a station, handled. The bus came. I got on and I made a point of choosing a seat far from where he'd been standing. I thought distance was the end of it. I didn't understand yet that he wasn't the part I had to get away from. He got on the same bus, and from his seat, several rows up, he kept turning around to find me, smiling, patting the empty seat beside him, waving me up. "Come sit here, come up here with me," like we were old friends and I'd simply gotten lost on my way to him. Over and over the whole ride, that turn and that wave. I shook my head and looked out the window and held my bag in my lap and counted the stops and told myself the second the doors opened at my city, I would lose him in the crowd. We pulled into the destination, a huge, busy terminal, exactly the kind of churn I was counting on to swallow me. I let other people get off first. I hung back, and it didn't matter. He waited too. He stood by the doors and he waited for me, patient, smiling, and when I finally had to step down onto the platform, he fell right in beside me, close, matching my pace, back at my shoulder like the whole bus ride had just been an intermission. And now he wanted something, and he couldn't say it. He kept starting sentences in his language and mine and giving up halfway, gesturing, frustrated, the smile going tight at the edges. There was a thing he was trying to get me to do, and the language barrier was in his way, and I could see him deciding to go around it. He stopped walking. He reached into his jacket, and he took out his phone. I thought, for one stupid, hopeful second, that he was going to use a translation app. Type his sentence, show me the screen, and I'd finally understand what he wanted and could say no to it cleanly. That's not what he did. He dialed. He put the phone to his own ear for a moment, said a few quick, low words into it, and then, before I could step back, he held the phone out and pressed it to the side of my head, to my ear, so I'd hear whoever was on the other end. And there was a woman's voice on the line, calm, warm, speaking my language clearly, easily, the way he couldn't. A kind, unhurried, helpful voice, like a hotel clerk, like someone reading from a script she'd read before. And for 1/2 second, the warmth of it almost worked on me. A friendly woman, finally someone I could understand. And then I heard the actual words she was saying, and the warmth of her voice and the cold of the words did not match at all. She said she was coming to pick us up. Not me, not him, us. I'm going to come and collect him and you both, and I'll drive you where you're going. Like it was arranged, like it was settled, like the two of us were a pair she'd been told to expect, and a car was already moving toward this platform to take us somewhere. And it landed on me all at once, standing there with a stranger's phone against my face. He was never the danger by himself. He was the hand. The voice in my ear was the rest of it, somewhere close, with a car. I had spent the whole bus ride watching him. His smile, his hands, the seat he kept patting. I'd read every inch of the man in front of me, and I'd never once thought to be afraid of the phone. I pulled my head back off the phone. I said no, loud, flat, in my own language, not caring if either of them understood the word, as long as they understood the tone. No, I'm not going anywhere. No. And his face changed. The patience cracked, and underneath it was something working very fast. Recalculating, deciding how hard to push in a terminal full of people. The phone still live in his hand, with that woman still on it. Still waiting, I think, to hear whether the handoff had worked. So I moved. I turned and I walked fast into the thickest part of the crowd, and I picked the one place I was sure a man like him would not follow. The women's bathroom, deep in the terminal, full of people. I went in and I stood against the back wall by the sinks where strangers were washing their hands, and I made myself breathe, and I waited. And after a while I edged to the doorway and looked out, and there he was. Out in the concourse, walking the crowd in slow lines, scanning faces, looking for where I'd gone. I watched him hunt for me for what felt like an hour and was probably 10 minutes. Back and forth across the terminal, checking the benches, the shops, the platforms, the phone still in his hand the whole time. And then, finally, he stopped. He stood still in the middle of all those people, and he lifted the phone to his ear one more time and said something short, and then he put it away, and he walked out of the terminal, and he was gone. And I have always wondered what he said into it, and whether the car ever stopped circling. I waited a long time after that before I left. And when I finally walked out of that station, I walked the long way, the bright way, with people the whole route. And there was nothing to report and no one to report. A friendly man asked me some questions and let me listen to a phone call. That's all that happened on paper. No name, no face I could draw of the woman. I never saw her at all. Just a voice, somewhere in a city I left the next morning, that knew my language better than the man did, and called me part of a pair. I travel differently now. When a stranger gets friendly fast, I don't just watch the stranger anymore. I look past him. I look for the car that's idling, the person on the bench who's a little too aware of us, the phone that comes out for no good reason. Because the man talking to you is the part you're supposed to be busy with. I used to be afraid of the person in front of me. Now I'm afraid of the second person, the one I can't see, the one he's keeping you talking long enough to arrive. This one happened in the middle of the day, in the busiest, most ordinary place I can think of. A big grocery store parking lot, 11 in the morning, packed, carts rattling, families loading trunks, 100 people within shouting distance. I was sitting in my own car in a good spot near the doors, just checking my phone before I drove off. Bright sun, full lot, nothing about it felt like a place where anything could happen. That feeling of safety in a crowd, I had it because it's exactly what the whole thing ran on. A man came walking up the road toward my car. Ordinary looking, nothing alarming, a guy crossing a parking lot, and he came right up to my driver's door and made a little wind it down motion with his hand. Friendly, concerned, so I cracked the window a couple of inches, the way you do because it's the middle of the day and a man wants to tell you something. And he leaned down to the gap, with a helpful, worried look on his face, and told me there was something wrong with my car. He said my car had been making a sound. A bad sound, he said, when I pulled in, like something under the hood. "You should pop the hood. Let me take a look. I think you've got a problem." And that was the whole of his story, and I want to be honest, I barely heard it, because something about him standing at my window in that packed lot, that worried, helpful face, had already put a cold weight in my chest, and the car sound thing slid right off me. I knew my car was fine. I didn't care about the car. I cared that he wanted my window down and my hood up. So I said, "No thanks, it's fine," and I started my engine. And he didn't leave. That's the moment it tipped. A real stranger, a genuinely helpful one, says "suit yourself" and walks away. They've done their good deed, they don't care. This one stayed. He stayed bent at my window with that same face, and he said it again, more insistent now. "No, really, you need to let me look. Your car's gonna lock up on you if you drive it like that." Lock up on you. Like he was an authority, like he knew. Trying to put a little fear in me. "Drive away and your engine seizes. You'll be stranded, so you'd better stop right here and pop the hood and get out." And I just kept saying, "No. No, I'm okay, thank you, no." My hand was on the gear shift and my window was going back up. And the whole time he was tracking me, leaning, following the window up with that worried mask. And I could not for the life of me read what he actually wanted. I just knew it wasn't to help. I put the car in reverse and I started backing out of the space. And he walked with me. Alongside the car, hand almost on it, keeping pace, still talking through the glass. "You're making a mistake. You really need to stop. Let me just look." Following a moving car on foot across a parking lot in broad daylight. And that, more than anything he'd said, was when my whole body went to alarm. Because a person who follows your car as you try to leave is a person who needs you to not leave. I got the car straightened out and pointed at the exit, and I started to pull forward, away from him. And finally, he stopped. He stood up out of his lean, and the worried, helpful face just switched off. Gone, like a light. No frustration, no shrug, no last try. He just turned the second he saw I was actually leaving and walked away from my car like I'd stopped existing, off across the lot, unhurried, toward the far rows of parked cars. And I should have just driven out, but I was rattled, and I watched him go in my mirror, trying to make sense of him, and I saw him walk up to another car. A car parked a few rows over, sitting still in the lane, not in a space, just stopped there. And I realized with a drop in my stomach that its engine was running, exhaust in the bright air behind it. It had been sitting there, running, the whole time, waiting. And he walked around to the passenger side of that running car, and he opened the door, and he got in, the passenger side. Because there was already someone in the driver's seat, someone I had never seen, never noticed, who had been sitting in that car with the engine running, watching the whole thing happen at my window, waiting for his partner to get me to stop and get out. There were two of them. The whole time there had been two of them, and I'd spent every second of it staring at the one they sent to keep me looking. I did not wait to see what the car did. I drove, straight out of that lot and into traffic and through 3 turns I didn't need, watching my mirror the whole way. But it didn't follow. It didn't have to. It had been a clean miss, and they were practiced enough to know it. And a car that's hunting a parking lot doesn't chase one that got away. It just sits back down and waits for the next person who rolls their window down. When I got somewhere safe and my hand stopped shaking, I started reading. And it turned out it wasn't just me. There'd been a run of them at that shopping center. Woman alone in a car, a man with a friendly problem. The same story, almost word for word. And people had started warning each other. Same lot, same daylight, same approach. No one caught, no names, just a stack of near misses and a pattern. And the plain fact that a thing that organized, with a waiting car and a driver and a man whose only job was my window, had been working that lot for a while and would work it again the next bright morning. I think about how close it was and how it would have looked if I'd believed him about the sound, if I'd popped the hood and stepped out to look. A woman gets out of her car in a busy lot at 11 a.m. to check her engine. That's nothing. That's invisible. No one watching would have seen a crime, just a helpful man and a small problem. Right up until the second car pulled forward, and by then I'd have had my back to it, bent over an engine that was running perfectly fine. I don't roll my window down in parking lots anymore. Not for anyone, not ever. And I'm not gentle about it the way people want you to be gentle. Some stranger comes at my car with a worried face and a problem, and I don't feel bad, and I don't roll it down, and I don't explain. Because I know now what that face is for. I don't look at him. I look past him, at the parked cars for the one sitting there with its engine running and nobody getting out. That's the one. Not him. Him they can replace by the next morning. It's the car that's already waiting that I can't forgive. And it's still out there, waiting in some bright full lot right now. I was studying abroad, and I'd learned to read the late trains the way you learn a new city, by feel. My friend and I were heading back to where we were staying on a commuter line, late, well after the evening rush. The car wasn't empty and it wasn't full, just a scatter of people the way a late train always has. A handful of men, spread out, sitting alone, not talking, the ordinary loneliness of public transit at night. Strangers who happened to share a train. That's what I saw. That's what I was supposed to see. There were maybe 6 or 7 of them, scattered through the car, one a few rows ahead of us, a couple across the aisle, 1 or 2 behind, all apparently unconnected, different ages, different clothes, none of them sitting together, none of them speaking. If you'd asked me, I'd have said the car was just lightly full of tired men going home. And for the first few minutes, that's exactly what it was to me. Nothing about any one of them was alarming on its own. It was my friend who noticed first. She went quiet next to me, and then she leaned in close and said, very low, "Don't look around, just listen." And she told me to watch the man ahead of us, and the 2 across the aisle, the next time the train rocked. And I did. And I saw one of them, without turning his head, make a small movement with his hand against his leg. A flick of the fingers. Nothing. The kind of thing you'd never see if you weren't looking for it. And then a man across the aisle answered it. The same kind of small movement, low, against his own thigh, where you'd never catch it from the front. A different shape with the fingers. A reply. And then the one behind us, I felt my friend's hand tighten on my arm. Did one too. Quietly, patiently. Men who were not sitting together, who had not said one word to each other, passing signals back and forth across a train car, in a code, in their hands, with their faces pointed straight ahead. And the whole car changed, without anything in it moving. Because once I saw one signal, I couldn't unsee the rest. These men weren't strangers who happened to share a train. They knew each other, all of them. The one ahead, the pair across, the ones behind. Every scattered, lonely, unconnected man in that car was talking to every other one, silently, the entire time we'd been sitting there thinking we were just 2 girls on a quiet train. I made myself think about where they were, and that's when the cold really came. Because they weren't clustered, they were placed. One ahead of us, blocking the way forward up the car, 2 across the aisle, level with us. one or two behind, blocking the way back. We were in the middle of them, boxed, not by accident, not by where tired people happened to sit, but spaced out around us on purpose, so that whichever way we got up to move, there was already one of them in it. My friend kept her voice down to almost nothing. She said, "When the train stops, we're getting off. Whatever stop it is. We get off and we get into the station where there are people." And it sounded right. Get off this trap of a train, get out onto a platform, get into the lights in the crowd of a station. That was the plan, and it was a good plan, and it was, I would realize in about 90 seconds, exactly the plan they wanted us to have. Because the doors on our side, the way we'd naturally get off, were to our right. And as the train started to slow for the next station, my friend shifted her weight toward the right-hand doors, just barely, just enough to telegraph that's where we're going. And the men moved. Not fast, not obviously, but the one ahead of us got up, unhurried, and drifted toward the right doors. One of the pair across the aisle stood and turned that way too. They were getting up to get off where we were getting off, repositioning, quietly, to be on the platform first. And that's the thing that turned my blood to water. We hadn't said a word out loud. We'd barely moved, and they were already answering it, flowing toward the same doors, getting ready to be waiting for us out there in the open. They were herding us off it, onto a late-night platform. The train was just the box that walked us to the door. The train slowed. The platform slid up alongside the windows, and I could see it, long, half-lit, nearly empty, a few people way down at the far end. Not the busy, bright station my friend had pictured. A quiet one. And the men were stacked up at the right-hand doors now, casual, facing them, ready to step out the second they opened, turning their backs to us just enough to look like ordinary passengers waiting to get off. And my friend's hand found mine, and she squeezed it once, hard, which I understood to mean, get ready. The doors opened, and the men stepped off. Out onto the platform, 2, 3 of them, fanning out, casual, taking up spots. One near the stairs, one a little down the platform. The way you'd stand if you were about to escort 2 people who didn't yet know they were being escorted. And we stood up. We got up out of our seats and we moved toward the open doors, toward them, like we were getting off, like the plan was working. And I watched the nearest one half turn to receive us. And in the doorway, with one foot almost out, my friend grabbed my arm and said one word, "Wait," and she pulled me back. Back from the doors, back into the train, both of us 2 steps backward into the car, off the platform, in the last second before the doors began to close. And I will never forget the faces of the men who were already outside. The half second their easy waiting expressions broke, when they realized the 2 people they just stepped off the train to collect had not stepped off the train. The doors started to close, and the men still on the train with us, the ones behind, the ones who hadn't gotten off yet, froze. Caught, half up out of their seats, committed to a plan that had just split in 2, some of them outside on the platform, and some of them inside with us, and the doors sliding shut between, and not one of them able to do a single sudden thing about it without becoming, instantly, exactly what they'd spent all night hiding that they were. The doors closed, and the train started to move. And the ones still inside the car, I braced for them to rush us in the seconds before the next stop, 2 girls and however many of them were left. But they didn't, because their team was split now, half on a platform falling behind us. And whatever they were, they only worked as all of them at once. And they'd just been cut in half by a closing door. So they sat there, stranded with us, stranded from each other, pretending, again, to be strangers. And through the closing gap, Then through the glass as we pulled out, I watched the men we'd left on the platform, standing where they'd fanned out to wait for us, heads turning, scanning the platform, scanning the train going by, looking for where the two of us had gone. Because in their plan, we were already out there with them. And instead, the platform was empty, and the train was leaving, and we were behind the glass, watching them not be able to find us. And the train carried us away into the dark, and they got smaller, and they were gone. We rode several more stops with the men who were left, not looking at them until they got off, one at a time, at different stations, each one alone again, each one just a tired man leaving a train, the costume back on. And we never got off until we reached a stop so bright and so crowded, I could count 30 real people on the platform. And even then we ran. And we never learned anything. Not who they were, not how many, not what the platform was for. Just that a car full of strangers had been one thing the whole time, and we had very nearly walked off a train into the middle of it. I think about that wait a lot. The one word my friend said in the doorway. How close we came to not saying it, to being polite, to following the plan, to stepping off because we'd already started to. I used to think danger came from a person, one person, that you could see and read and get away from. That night taught me it can come as a crowd that isn't a crowd. A dozen quiet strangers who are actually one held breath, waiting for you to walk yourself out to where they're standing. So now I count. In any crowd that's gone too quiet, I count, and I watch the hands. And if my gut says wait, I wait, even with one foot out the door. It's the reason I'm still here to tell you. And let's never meet. 3 times. 3 strangers I read just fine, and 3 times that was never where the danger actually was. It was always the second one, the one I never spent a second of my fear on. So before you close the tab, ask yourself the quiet question. Of those 3, the voice you can't see, the partner in the waiting car, the crowd that's a team, which one do you think you'd have caught in time? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe so the next one reaches you before you've spent all your fear on the wrong face. And the next time a stranger has all of your attention, take a little of it back and look for who else is there.